force and pressure. Introduction to contact and non-contact forces. Look at man doing biceps exercise. Man is applying forces on the dumbbells. Now, look at fruits are falling from the tree. Indirect force from the earth applies pull. What are these forces? These are examples of contact and non-contact forces. Contact force is a force between two objects or an object and a surface that is in contact with each other. A non-contact force is any force applied to an object or body by another body that is not in direct contact with it. Contact forces. Look at the boy who is pushing a box. Boy is applying force on the box with the help of his hands. So the boy is in direct contact with the box through his hands. This is an example of contact force. The force is caused by the action of muscles, that is his hands. The force resulting due to the action of muscles is known as the muscular force. Let us see some more examples of muscular force. Look at the girl. Girl is applying muscular force on books as books are in contact with hands of girl. Snooker player is pushing a ball with help of stick. So this is an example of muscular force. Now go through the next animation. Do you know how matchstick catches fire? Do you know how a rider stops bicycle? Let us know more about this. In the first case, the matchstick ignites as we strike it on the surface of matchbox. It generates heat due to the friction in between the matchstick and the surface of matchbox. In the second case, bicycle stops when we stop pedaling. This happens because friction generates in between the surface of tires and the road. It is the force of friction which is bringing the change. Friction always acts on all the moving objects, and its direction is always opposite to the direction of motion. The force responsible for changing the state of motion of objects in both these examples is the force of friction. Since the force of friction arises due to contact between surfaces, it is also an example of a contact force. Let us see some more examples of frictional force. Due to friction between air and swing, it will stop its motion after a certain period of time. It is the frictional force due to which we feel warm when we rub palms of hand. Non-contact forces. We have understood now the nature of force when two surfaces are in contact. But what happens when there is no contact in between the surfaces? Do you know how magnet pulls iron objects without touching it? Do you know why fruits fall down? Do you know why sometimes paper pieces are attracted towards comb? Let's find answer to these questions. A magnet can exert a force on iron objects without being in contact with them. The force exerted by a magnet on iron particles is an example of a non-contact force. The force exerted by a magnet on other magnet is also a non-contact force. Objects or things fall towards the earth because it pulls them. This force is called the force of gravity or just gravity. This is an attractive force which acts on all objects. The force of gravity acts on all of us all the time. As we can see here too, there is no contact in between two objects, but still the force is working. So this is an example of non-contact force. In this case, as when comb is passed through the hair, it gets charged. Then, if we take that charged comb towards paper pieces, they attract towards the comb. The force exerted by a charged body on another charged or uncharged body is known as electrostatic force. This force comes into play even when the bodies are not in contact. The electrostatic force, therefore, is another example of a non-contact force. Summary. Let us summarize what we have learned. Contact force is a force between two objects or an object and a surface that is in contact with each other. A non-contact force is any force applied to an object or body by another body that is not in direct contact with it. The force resulting due to the action of muscles is known as the muscular force. Friction acts on all the moving objects, and its direction is always opposite to the direction of motion. The force exerted by a magnet is an example of a non-contact force. Force of gravity acts on all objects. The force exerted by a charged body on another charged or uncharged body is known as electrostatic force.